Hello lads, welcome back. So today I kind of wanted to do a bit of a speculation video going over the possible hidden or redacted feature that Lo-Fi keeps teasing in all of their AMAs and all of their update announcements regarding Kenshi 2. This is obviously brought to the forefront by the most recent update by Lo-Fi in regards to some of the development on Kenshi 2, where at several points during the AMA that they did with 3 of the members of staff, they would repeatedly bring up this hidden feature, and then obviously in the AMA that we got, it had been redacted out. However, this hidden feature has been talked about long before this AMA ever happened. In fact, the community has been talking about it for about the last 2.5 years, since Chris did his original AMA on Reddit several years back. And because of that, the community has spent quite a bit of time speculating what this hidden feature could possibly be, including myself in several of my other videos. But while a lot of the comments made in previous videos about this hidden feature were just that, one-off comments, I wanted to take some time to sit down and go over the community's thoughts on what the most likely outcome is for what this hidden feature could be. And just to dive right in, one possibility is that of boats. Now this one has been wildly speculated in the community since before even Chris's AMA due to the concept art that we've gotten on Kenshi 2, the high presence of water, the fact that we knew that the water levels were higher during the Second Empire, and also just the fact that all of the concept art for Kenshi 2 that we've seen, or a good majority of it, features some kind of aquatic transportation like boats or rafts. And I am personally of the mindset that boats are very likely to happen, but the real question is, are boats that secret feature that they're talking about? And based on the comments made in this previous AMA, I don't think they are. I think that boats are a feature that we're going to get, but I don't think they are the hidden feature that they've been teasing for the last 2.5 years. Now, those of you who watched my video on the update itself may be a bit confused because in that video I did say that I thought it might be boats. And at the time I did. However, after revisiting the AMA, reading the way the sentences are structured, and also just generally chatting with the community itself, I've since turned around on that idea, and while I do think we are getting boats, I don't think the secret feature is boats anymore. Mostly because it's not really a secret. Lo-Fi, in all honesty, has made very little attempt to cover up the idea that we might be getting boats in Kenshi 2. It's featured in all of their concept art. The community has pretty much come to the conclusion boats are a definite, and Lo-Fi has done nothing to curb that. Now, they are keeping things silent in terms of the development of Kenshi 2 because they don't want to give away their best stuff, but you would think that if the entire community came together and said we are getting boats, they might be concerned that there could be some backlash if they didn't include those boats in the final product. And so because we've gotten radio silence on that, despite the fact that the community at large has pretty much come to the conclusion we are getting boats, I don't think the hidden feature is boats, not anymore. But that kind of leads to the next question, which is, if it's not boats, what could it be? And thankfully the community and myself have kind of come up with a few different ideas for what that might be. Now, early on, after Chris made his initial remark in his AMA about this hidden feature, there was a bit of speculation that it might be wall climbing. And I do think that is possible, but I don't think that's grand enough to change the dynamic of gameplay enough that it would be this big hidden feature, especially one that they keep referencing in their stuff. And so it's possible that it might be wall climbing, but I really don't think that that is grand enough a feature to justify all of the secrecy behind it. And on a similar note, I've seen ideas floating around the community like it's a new trading system, an AI navigation system where you can actually have people running through and doing trade routes that you don't have to interfere with. You can set your characters and your squad to automatically go and act as a trader caravan or something along those lines. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that's a really interesting idea, and I would like to see something like that in Kenshi 2, and while I think that is closer to the kind of thing we'd be looking for in terms of something they might hide, I don't think that it's close enough. I don't think it's the kind of feature that they would go out of their way to hide. They've been pretty open about some of their other systems, like dividing cities up into sections, and the new way that they're dynamically placing various resources and the resource system and everything like that. And so while that is a really interesting system, I don't think that it is so large that they would want to hide it. And then another idea that I've seen floated around recently is the possibility that it is some kind of questing system. And while I think the questing system is a possibility of it being in the game, just because there's been a lot of feedback from the community that while they don't want a main story or some kind of hero story or a hero's journey, they do want some kind of questing system beyond the bounty system just to make their playthroughs feel less monotonous, because for a lot of people Kenshi ends up falling down to the same basic pattern of events. You start the game, you mine your ore, You sell your ore, make a little bit of money, build a squad. Eventually you just take over everything, or you kill specific factions and you become the dominant faction. And most people's games end up devolving into that. So a questing system would give you something to do to break the monotony up, and also kind of give more credence to solo playthroughs. And while I'm not personally big either way on whether or not we should include a questing system, I understand why people want it in the first place. And the dialogue system that they brought up briefly in the AMA kind of sounds like it could be used very well to make quest lines. And this idea is kind of given credence by the fact that right after that he talks about wanting to see what the community does with that new dialogue system. And right before he brought up the dialogue system, he was talking about that redacted feature. So it is possible that the redacted feature is a questing system, and I'm not going to rule that out. But I also have another alternative in mind for what the redacted feature might be. Now, several years ago during Chris's original AMA, just after Kenshi 2 was announced, he brought up that there was going to be an entirely new landmass to explore. Now, the generally accepted community consensus has been that it was going to be a new continent somewhere else on the moon that you would use the boats to get to. This largely makes sense considering that the time frame Kenshi 2 is going to take place in, the water levels are significantly higher, and as a result, boats are going to be a heavy mode of transportation, so it would make sense that we would sail out from the primary continent that we're aware of and maybe find new landmass. But the idea that I'm proposing is that maybe this new landmass is not out in the sea or the oceans or floating around anywhere of that sorts, but instead is under our very feet. You see, what I'm proposing is the possibility that this redacted system and this new landmass are connected in the sense that we are going to be introduced to an intricate cave system to where players will be able to go down under the surface of Kenshi and explore the subterranean continent. And frankly, the idea of an entire continent submerged underneath Kenshi, where these intricate cave systems connect down into this underground landmass, creates the potential for an entirely new section of the lore that we've never been able to explore, as well as the introduction of new enemy types, new factions, even new races. And despite the fact that I have the firm belief that the Hybers were genetically created by the Second Empire, this could potentially confirm or deny whether or not the Hybers are the natives of Kenshi, and the possibility that maybe they were stuck underground this entire time, only found during the Second Empire, which would explain why they only showed up after the Second Empire. I'm still personally of the belief that they were genetically created by the Second Empire, because that largely falls in line with the overall theme of Kenshi, being that all of the races and denizens of Kenshi are man-made. The humans are human-made, the Shek were genetically engineered by humans, the skeletons were manufactured by humans, and then to have the Hybers as just a weird alien offshoot doesn't really make sense thematically with the idea, but it could confirm or deny that possibility. And then obviously, aside from the lore implications, that creates an entirely new realm of gameplay in which you could create underground citadels. Suddenly, Kenshi goes from being this almost entirely outdoor open world sandbox with only interior cells that are predefined by built buildings, to now people can create active dungeon mods where there's a series of gauntlets and tests to get to the end, including bosses and unique legions and everything else. The potential for modding capabilities here in conjunction with that previously discussed dialogue system is insane, and we could be seeing essentially a renaissance of Kenshi mods where now we're going to be getting dungeon mods, we're going to be getting quest mods that take place in these uniquely built underground dungeons. And honestly, unlike a lot of the previous systems that we've talked about, this actually feels like it has the potential to be large enough that it's something they would want to hide, more so than maybe a dialogue system overhaul or a trading system overhaul or a questing system overhaul. But it doesn't feel so important to the community and so discussed amongst the community like, say, boats, that if they didn't put it in, they would face some kind of backlash where it would be smarter to confirm it ahead of time, or at the very least dissuade the community from thinking that's what it is. But at the end of the day, we probably won't know much, if anything more, until the release of Kenshi 2. And that's because Lo-Fi during that AMA last week said that they are not going to be drip feeding us content. We're going to be getting very sparse amounts of content here and there, similarly to how we haven't gotten one in the last 2 years, because they don't want to reveal too much too soon or risk giving away their best stuff. And this redacted feature is high priority on the stuff they don't want to give away. So we probably won't find out anything until either at or just before the release of Kenshi 2. But it's always fun to speculate, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. If you guys think that I'm right, if you think that I'm wrong, on any of the ideas that I presented today, Or if you have a different idea in mind, I'd love to hear about it below. Let's talk about it, get the discussion rolling, and see if we can piece together the mystery of what Kenshi's redacted feature is. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down with me today. Use your powers for good instead of evil, make a difference in someone's life, and never try to bribe a Shek Kingdom guard. Not a good idea.